It is 3 a.m. You are staring at the ceiling, replaying a conversation from 3 years ago. Or maybe it is a text message you received earlier today. It was just a few words, maybe a casual comment from your boss or a side remark from a friend, but it is stuck in your head on a loop. Why do we do this? Why does one sentence have the power to ruin our week or, conversely, make us feel like we are on top of the world? We like to think we are logical, independent creatures, but the truth is, we are wired for judgment. We crave validation, and we fear rejection with a biological intensity that feels like life or death. We spend our entire lives navigating this invisible economy of praise and blame. We see it in the corporate world, where a performance review can trigger an existential crisis. We see it in our relationships, where a silent treatment feels louder than a scream. But have you ever stopped to ask if we are actually doing it right? Most of us are operating on autopilot. We throw out a good job here and a you need to fix this there, assuming we are being helpful. But what if the way we praise is actually creating anxiety? What if the way we criticize is destroying trust? Today, we are going to go deep into the psychology of judgment. We are exploring the profound insights from the book Passing Judgment by the social psychologist Terry Apter. This is not about how to win friends or manipulate people. This is about understanding the human need for connection and how our words can either bridge that gap or burn the bridge completely. Let us start at the very beginning. And I mean the very beginning. From the moment we are born, before we can speak or walk, we are already experts at reading judgment. Terry Apter calls this the intuitive mind. It is a primal instinct, a survival mechanism that allows us to sense whether we are safe or in danger based on the people around us. Think about a baby who is only 2 months old. When a parent looks at that baby and smiles, really smiles with warmth and affection, what happens? The baby smiles back. It is not just a reflex. It is a biological dialogue. Neuroscience tells us that in that moment, the baby's brain is flooded with oxytocin. We often call oxytocin the love hormone or the cuddle chemical, but it is actually a crucial neurotransmitter for building neural pathways. It is the fuel for brain development. When a parent praises a child, looking at them with that "you are so precious" energy, the child's brain releases oxytocin and endorphins. This does 2 things. First, it makes the child feel good, obviously. But secondly, and more importantly, it teaches the child's brain how to connect. It says, I am seen. I am safe. I belong here. Children who receive this kind of responsive praise tend to develop faster cognitive skills because their nervous system is calm enough to learn. Conversely, children who are deprived of this interaction often show slower neural responses. So, the takeaway seems simple, right? Praise is good. Praise is necessary. Therefore, more praise must be better. If you grew up in the United States during the 1990s or the 2000s, you know exactly where this is going. We lived through the self-esteem movement. Our parents and teachers were told that the key to a successful child was constant, unwavering praise. Participation trophies, gold stars for showing up, the idea that every drawing is a masterpiece. This philosophy was heavily influenced by the famous Rosenthal effect, also known as the Pygmalion effect. Here is the gist of the study. Researchers went into a classroom, picked a few students at random, and told the teacher, "These kids are geniuses. They are about to have an intellectual growth spurt." Now, these kids were chosen completely at random. They were no different from their peers. But because the teacher believed they were special, she treated them differently. She praised them more, gave them more attention, and had higher expectations. And guess what? By the end of the year, those random kids actually had higher scores. The prophecy fulfilled itself. So, society took this data and ran with it. We decided that if we just told kids they were smart, they would become smart. If we told them they were special, they would become successful. But Terry Apter suggests we missed a massive, critical detail. There is a dark side to the praise culture. And if you are a millennial or Gen Z who struggles with perfectionism or anxiety, this might hit very close to home. Apter conducted her own research and found that blind, excessive praise often creates the exact opposite of confidence. It creates a fragile ego and a deep sense of anxiety. She observed a young girl, let us call her May. May was sitting at the kitchen table doing her homework. She finishes a math problem, and her grandmother, wanting to be supportive, leans over and says, "Wow, you did that so perfectly. You are so smart." Now, logically, May should feel good. But she does not. She bursts into tears. Why? When Apter asked her later, the truth came out. May knew she had struggled with that problem. She felt unsure about it. When her grandmother called it perfect, May did not feel seen. She felt like a fraud. She internalized a terrifying message. Grandma thinks I am perfect. If I make a mistake next time, I will lose her love. I have to keep pretending to be this genius she thinks I am. The praise did not build her up. It trapped her in a box of perfectionism. Then there was another case. A 7-year-old boy named Steve. Steve was working on a clay sculpture. It was kind of messy, a lumpy little figure. His mother walked by, barely looked at it, and said, "That is beautiful, honey. You are such an artist." Steve's reaction? He smashed the clay figure onto the table. He was furious. Why? Because kids have that intuitive mind. They know when you are lying. Steve knew his sculpture was lumpy. By calling it beautiful, without really looking, his mother was signaling that she did not care enough to give him real feedback. It felt dismissive, like a pat on the head to get him to be quiet. He wanted to be taken seriously, even if it meant being told, "Hey, that arm looks a little wonky." This is the trap of the self-esteem movement. We raised a generation addicted to external validation but simultaneously terrified of it. We learned that good job is often just a filler word. We learned that being called gifted is a burden because it means you are not allowed to struggle. We see this play out in the modern workplace every single day. Think about the gifted kid burnout phenomenon. You grow up being told you are smart, so you never learn how to work through failure. When you get your first job and your boss says, "This presentation is great," you do not believe them. You think they are just being nice. But if they have one critique, you spiral. You think, they finally found out. I am an imposter. This is the legacy of empty praise. It disconnects us from reality. But here is the catch. If praise is this complicated, if telling someone you are doing great can actually backfire, then what about the other side of the coin? What about criticism? If we are terrified of fake praise, we are absolutely paralyzed by blame. And trust me, the way we handle blame, whether we are giving it or receiving it, is even more messed up than how we handle praise. We need to talk. 4 simple words. When you see that text pop up on your phone, or you hear your partner say it with that specific drop in their voice, what happens to your body? Your stomach drops. Your heart rate spikes. Your palms might get a little sweaty. Before you even know what the conversation is about, your brain has already pulled the fire alarm. It is screaming, "Emergency! Threat detected." We instinctively brace ourselves for impact because we are wired to interpret criticism not just as feedback, but as an attack on our very survival. This hypersensitivity to blame is another relic of our evolutionary past. Thousands of years ago, if you messed up, if you let the fire go out, or you fell asleep while guarding the camp, the consequences were not just a bad performance review or an awkward dinner. The consequence was exile. And for our ancestors, exile was a death sentence. You could not survive the prehistoric wild alone. So, our brains evolved a terrifyingly efficient warning system. Social rejection equals death. That is why solitary confinement is considered one of the cruelest punishments in the modern prison system. To be completely cut off, to be judged as unworthy of the group, breaks the human mind faster than almost any physical torture. So when your boss asks, "Why did you do it this way?" or your partner says, "You forgot to take out the trash again," you are not just hearing a logistical complaint. Your amygdala, the lizard part of your brain, is hearing, "You are useless. You are a burden. The tribe is going to leave you behind." That is why we get defensive. That is why we snap back, make excuses, or shut down completely. We are trying to protect our ego from what feels like annihilation. But here is the hard truth we have to swallow. We cannot live without blame. If praise is the sunlight that helps us grow, constructive criticism is the pruning that gives us shape. Without it, we become wild, unmanageable, and ultimately incapable of functioning in a complex society. We need accountability to mature. The problem isn't that we criticize. It is that most of us are terrible at it. We use blame as a weapon rather than a tool. To understand how to fix this, we have to go back to the scene of the crime, our childhood homes. The family unit is the first place we learn the language of judgment. Psychologists generally categorize criticism into two distinct styles: responsive criticism and intrusive criticism. Understanding the difference between these two can explain decades of your own therapy bills. Responsive criticism is specific and actionable. It focuses on the behavior, not the person. It says, "I need you to do X, and you did Y. Here is the gap, and here is how we close it." Intrusive criticism, on the other hand, attacks the character. It generalizes a mistake into a personality flaw. It turns "you failed the test" into "you are a failure." Let us look at a classic scenario. Imagine two brothers coming home with their report cards. The younger brother made the honor roll. The older brother, who is maybe a bit more rebellious or just struggles with focus, comes home with average grades, maybe a couple of C's. He is already feeling low. He knows he didn't do his best. If the parent uses responsive criticism, the conversation looks like this: "I can see you are disappointed with these grades. You didn't put in the study hours this semester, and the results show that. But I know you are capable. Next semester, we are going to set up a study schedule and stick to it. We will fix the process." This is tough love. It holds the boy accountable, but it offers a path forward. It separates the boy's worth from his output. Now, look at the intrusive criticism version. The parent sees the report card, sighs deeply, and says, "Why are you always so lazy? Look at your brother. He works hard. You just sit in your room playing video games. You are wasting your potential. I don't know what is going to become of you." Do you feel the difference? The second version does not offer a solution. It offers shame. It tells the child that the problem isn't what he did, but who he is. When we are on the receiving end of intrusive criticism, we don't reflect on our actions. We double down. We resent the person criticizing us. We think, "Well, if you think I'm lazy, I'll show you lazy. We internalize the label. This dynamic doesn't disappear when we move out of our parents' house. We carry it right into our adult relationships. In the book Non-Violent Communication, which is basically the Bible of emotional intelligence, Marshall Rosenberg offers a life-changing perspective. He says that behind every criticism, no matter how poorly delivered, is a tragic expression of an unmet need. When someone screams at you, "You never listen to me," they are not actually analyzing your hearing ability. They are crying out, "I feel lonely, and I need to feel connected to you." But because we are culturally illiterate in emotional language, we use judgment instead of vulnerability. We attack because we are afraid to ask. And this brings us to the most volatile arena of judgment: romantic relationships. The renowned relationship researcher, Dr. John Gottman, can predict with over 90% accuracy whether a couple will divorce just by watching them argue for a few minutes. And here is the kicker: it is not about whether they fight. All couples fight. It is about the ratio of positive to negative interactions, and specifically how they use praise and blame. Gottman found that contempt, which is basically criticism mixed with a sense of superiority, is the #1 predictor of divorce. But there is a subtle trap in relationships that Terry Apter highlights, and it is something called manipulative praise. This is where the lines between a compliment and a command get blurry. Consider this story from the book. There is a husband, let us call him Jim, and his wife, Jill. Every time Jill picks up Jim's dry cleaning or organizes his chaotic schedule, Jim hits her with this line: "You are just so thoughtful. I would be a total mess without you. You are the only one who knows how to handle these things." At first glance, this sounds lovely. Jill feels appreciated. She feels seen as the responsible, caring partner. The oxytocin flows. But Jim keeps saying it. Every time there is a chore he doesn't want to do, he deploys the praise. "You are so much better at talking to the insurance company than I am. You are the master of packing the car." Over time, that praise starts to feel heavy. It stops feeling like a compliment and starts feeling like a cage. Jill realizes that "you are so thoughtful" actually translates to "I expect you to carry the mental load for both of us. And if you stop, you are letting me down." The praise has become a binding contract. One day, Jim is getting ready for a trip and tells Jill to go pick up his suits. Jill is exhausted. She asks, "Can't you get them yourself this time?" And Jim replies, shocked, "But you are always so helpful. That is who you are." And Jill explodes. She screams, "Stop telling me I'm helpful." I hate it. Jim is confused. He thinks he was being nice, but he wasn't. He was using praise to enforce a role he wanted her to play. This is a crucial lesson for us. Praise is only valuable when it is free, when it is given, without an agenda, without a hidden to-do list attached to it. When we use compliments to maneuver people into doing what we want, we are not connecting, we are controlling. And eventually, the other person will feel the strings being pulled. So, we have seen how criticism can crush us if it attacks our character, and we have seen how praise can trap us if it is used to manipulate. This leaves us in a tricky spot, especially in our social circles and workplaces. We are terrified of offending people, so we often swing too far the other way. We engage in what I call the art of the polite lie. Think about your friendships. You have a friend who is constantly dating toxic people, or maybe they have a habit of dominating every conversation. Do you tell them? Probably not. We smile and nod. We suppress our judgment because we have been taught that being a good friend means unconditional support. We think we are being kind, but we are actually withholding the data they need to grow. We prioritize the immediate comfort of the interaction over the long-term health of the friendship. Or think about the workplace vent session. Your colleague gets chewed out by the boss for a mistake that, let us be honest, was actually their fault. They come to you, angry and venting. The boss is such a jerk. He's just power tripping. What do? You validate them. Yeah, totally. Don't worry about it. You're great. He's just stressed. We call this being supportive, but often we are just enabling their blind spots. We are helping them build a wall of defense rather than a bridge to improvement. We are so afraid of being the bad guy that we settle for being the nice enabler. So, how do we break this cycle? How do we give feedback that is actually heard? How do we praise without manipulating? And most importantly, how do we critique someone, especially in a high-stakes environment like work, without triggering that prehistoric "I'm going to die" alarm bell in their brain? The answer lies in a specific structural technique, a way of packaging the truth so that it can be swallowed. So, we arrive at the final boss level of human interaction, the workplace. This is where the stakes feel highest, because our livelihood is literally on the line. We have all received that vague calendar invite from a manager that just says sync or chat, and we have all felt that immediate spike of adrenaline. We assume we are in trouble. We assume the tribe is voting us off the island. And as managers or leaders, we dread sending that invite just as much, because we do not want to be the villain in someone else's story. We want to be liked, but we also need the work to be done right. To solve this, organizational psychologists and management experts often point to a technique that has become a bit of a corporate cliché, but for a very good reason. It is called the sandwich method. Now, before you roll your eyes and think about cheesy corporate training videos, let us actually break down the psychology of why this works and how to use it without sounding like a robot. The Vietnamese script we are analyzing highlights this as the gold standard for preserving dignity while correcting behavior. The sandwich method consists of 3 layers: validation, the critique, and the future orientation. Or, if you prefer, the top bun, the meat, and the bottom bun. The top bun is the validation. This is not about flattery. It is about establishing safety. Remember the intuitive mind we talked about earlier. When you sit down with an employee, their intuitive mind is scanning for threats. If you start immediately with, "This report is wrong," their defenses go up, their ears close, and they go into fight or flight mode. You have lost them. So, you start by grounding them in safety. You might say, "I know you have been grinding on this project. I saw you logged late hours last week to help the design team, and I really appreciate that dedication." This does 2 things. It releases a little hit of dopamine, and it signals, "I see you. You are valuable. You are not being exiled." Now that their defenses are lowered, you slide in the meat. This is the critique. But here is the key. It must be specific, and it must be about the work, not the person. You do not say, "You are bad at listening." You say, "However, looking at the final client report, the data on customer retention was missing. It seems like we prioritized our internal ideas over the specific feedback the client gave us in the last meeting." Notice the difference. We are looking at the report, not the person's character. We are identifying a gap in the process. Then you apply the bottom bun, the future orientation. You do not leave them dwelling on the mistake. You give them a roadmap out of it. You say, "This is actually a great learning opportunity for the quarterly review. For the next pitch, let us try a new strategy where we bullet point the client's needs before we start the slide deck. I think if you collaborate with Sarah on this, your presentation skills combined with her data analysis will make the next one a slam dunk. By ending on the future, you are telling them, there is a tomorrow. You are still part of the team. We are going to fix this together. This transforms criticism from a punishment into a project. It turns anxiety into action. But let us flip the camera. What if you are the one in the chair? What if you are the one eating the sandwich? It is easy to talk about this in theory, but when you are sitting there and someone tells you that you messed up, it hurts. It physically hurts. That is your ego trying to protect itself. But if we want to grow, if we want to actually find that inner peace and personal legend we talk about, we have to learn to override that reaction. We have to learn to separate our identity from our output. When your boss, or your partner, or your friend critiques you, try to visualize the criticism as a physical object they are handing you, like a data drive. You can take it, plug it in, analyze the files, and see if there is any useful code on it. If there is, you download it and upgrade your system. If it is just a virus, if it is just their own projection or insecurity, you can delete it. But you do not have to let it crash your entire operating system. You are not your mistakes. You are the consciousness that learns from them. This brings us back to the core message of Terry Apter's passing judgment. We spend so much energy trying to avoid judgment. We hide our flaws. We fish for compliments. We tell polite lies to our friends because we think judgment is the enemy of love. But the truth is, judgment is the mechanism of connection. It is how we navigate each other. Think about the polite lie again. The script mentions how we often just nod and say, "You are right," to a friend who is ranting, even when we know they are wrong. We think we are protecting them. But are we? Or are we just protecting ourselves from an awkward conversation? Real intimacy requires the courage to say, "Hey, I love you, but I think you were out of line back there." And it requires the grace to hear that from someone else and say, "Thank you for holding up the mirror." We are all walking around with blind spots. We cannot see our own faces without a mirror. In the same way, we cannot see our own character without the reflection of other people. Praise tells us what we are keeping. Criticism tells us what we need to shed. Both are gifts, if we know how to unwrap them. The goal isn't to reach a state of nirvana where we never care what anyone thinks. We are human. We will always care. The goal is to build a filter. To know the difference between the empty calories of fake praise and the nutrition of real recognition. To know the difference between destructive shaming and constructive guidance. As you go through your week, pay attention to the feedback loop. When you praise someone, are you doing it to make them feel seen or to get them to do something? When you criticize, are you venting your frustration or are you teaching? And when the world judges you, because it will, can you take a deep breath, quiet that terrified lizard brain, and ask, is there something here I can use to build a better version of myself? Life is a constant conversation between you and the universe. Sometimes the universe speaks through a whisper of intuition, and sometimes it speaks through a loud complaint from your neighbor. But it is all just information. It is all just pointing you toward who you are meant to become. So, here is my challenge for you tonight. I want you to think about the last time someone gave you a piece of criticism that stung. Maybe it was a week ago. Maybe it was 10 years ago. Now that the emotion has faded, can you look at it again? Was there a grain of truth in it? Was there a lesson you missed because you were too busy defending yourself? Let me know in the comments below. Let's create a space down there where we can be honest about our growth without the fear of judgment. If you found value in this late-night deep dive, go ahead and hit that like button. It is the digital version of a warm smile, and it tells the algorithm to share this campfire with more people who need to hear it. I will catch you in the next video. Keep listening, keep learning, and be kind to yourself.